Hello, citizens of Rochester. This is Brian Grant reporting from my bedroom. I'm sitting here, relaxing. I just wanted to bring up and talk to you about a certain issue that's really big right now. It's not a local issue so much as a global issue, and it has to do with the BP oil spill. I wanted to talk about the oil spill because it has a lot to do with some things that I'm going to be discussing later in the campaign. Um, Mostly, the decrease in legislation and how it's important to have entrepreneurship and personal industry really thriving in a country like America. Um, I just finished watching a news story about a device that was invented by Kevin Costner that could really help clean up a lot of the oil that's been spilled into the Caribbean lately, which is pretty cool. And Kevin Costner has, millions and millions of dollars, and he was able to invest $20 million into a device, a centrifuge that separates the oil from the water, which he did 12 years ago. I think there are a lot of smarter people in New Hampshire than Kevin Costner who could have come up with these, all kinds of devices. And I see it every day where we have the opportunity to build and use alternative fuel sources, um, to make vehicles that run off different energies, and we don't. And the reason we don't is because the individual, the private citizen, doesn't have access to the materials, to the stuff we need to do it. And we assume that we don't have access because these safety regulations are put in place. There's a lot of legislation that has to do with who can get hold of what chemicals or what machinery, or who can perform what kind of tasks or make certain things. And it has a lot of limiting effect on the economy, and especially the local economy, the grassroots, the people that would actually be building these things, so that people won't design or build these machines because they don't have the money and they can't afford to get sued by the government, and they can't afford the fines that would take place. And Kevin Costner has a lot of money. Most people don't. And these regulations we assume are in place for our safety have the effect of making it so that only large multi-million dollar corporations can do these things. And instead of doing them, instead of giving us the best we can from our economy, they're cutting costs, putting dead batteries in things, like what has caused this oil spill in the first place. And I'm pretty disturbed by this. It's not acceptable. But what I feel we need to do is to support industry in the local level, to support inventors around America, because we can make so many things, so many solutions to clean the air, to deal with global warming, to revitalize this economy, but we're not. And the reason we're not is because lobbying groups from large corporations have gotten into our state and federal government, and they've convinced us that they're limiting our ability to produce goods and make money and save the world for our own good, for our own safety. The free market approach is really, really the only positive approach that we can take to make sure that we have access to new inventions and ingenuity that would help us solve problems like this oil spill, which has gone on for way too long. I'm very upset over the situation that fishermen, my father was a fisherman growing up, and that fishermen in the Gulf are, killing themselves because they don't feel that they have any hope. There was an oil spill when I was a kid that really ruined a lot of fishing off of the New Hampshire coast, and fishermen hardly got anything. No compensation, not even an "I'm sorry" from the oil companies. I thought that was pretty sad, and I think this situation is sad too. I am glad that someone like Kevin Costner has invented an item that will help, but it's certainly not a cure. I mean, the cure would have been not to have these problems in the first place. I do believe that we should harvest oil and have access to energy sources, but not if we can't have access to solutions. When things go wrong, we need solutions. So when I'm talking about decreasing, regulation and making things available to people, making vehicles available to people, making chemical compounds and machinery available to people, I'm talking about it from the perspective of a free market that can resolve problems. And I hope that you'll keep that in mind. And every time you go to buy tuna fish this summer, as the price is surely going to skyrocket, I hope it reminds you that the cost of these regulations is being paid by you, the consumer. I mean, the problems come up, and you're paying to solve them, but you're really paying for something that could have been a lot cheaper if you had been able to solve the problem from the beginning. If somebody out there had been able to design machinery that could do it, if someone out there had the alternative energies, if we weren't so dependent on oil from offshore drilling and from foreign oil wells, then a lot of these problems we're dealing with wouldn't be problems. So I hope you can keep that in mind, and I hope that it motivates you to maybe go out in the garage and start building something that you've been thinking about. I used to design machinery, or try to, that would produce electricity off of all kinds of different things, little balloon devices with generators on them, and step-up coils and things like that. And I would like to remind you that we have the third strongest current in the world here at the Piscataqua River. And we also have some of the strongest wind currents in the world up on top of Mount Washington. Great sources of energy in New Hampshire that haven't been harvested, and they're waiting for people, everyday people, to get out there and start solving these problems and building. And hopefully you won't be able to worry for too long about how much it's going to cost you, and the corporations and their government and their lobbyists are pushing you around for having access to things or trying to make their business life harder. Well, thank you very much, and have a good day.